Hey everyone, it's Brandy and welcome back to my channel, Brandy Janae's Bookshelf. Today I am here to talk about my worst reads of 2019. In this video, I only have 5 books to talk about. I feel like the majority of the books that I read in 2019 were 3 stars and above. And all of the books that I'm going to be talking about today are 1 and 2 stars. I think I did have a couple more 2 stars listed in my Goodreads stats, but I couldn't remember enough about them to actually talk about them in this video. So I decided to just pick mainly my 1 stars and then a couple 2 stars that really stuck out to me. So I'm pretty much going to be talking about these in order of ones that weren't that bad, or not necessarily weren't that bad, but I definitely had things that I enjoyed about them. And then my final 2 are ones that I just could not get with at all. The first book I have to talk about is Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me by Mariko Tamaki. And this is actually a graphic novel. So in this one, we're following this character named Frederica, but she goes by Freddie, I'm pretty sure, if I'm remembering correctly. And she is a high school girl, and basically the premise of this graphic novel is that she's navigating a toxic relationship with this really popular girl in her school named Laura Dean. I appreciated that it had those queer factors and we got to see different elements of the queer community. However, I did not appreciate the actual storyline, and I think it had a lot to do with how the main character changed herself to be with this specific person. I did not enjoy reading this because our main character Freddie, she had this group of friends and she pretty much just kind of ignored them whenever Laura Dean had time for her. Laura Dean clearly has her own problems that she needs to work out, but because this story was focused on Freddie, I was just really upset with how she kind of, like I said, she kind of ditched her friends whenever things came up. I didn't get an enjoyment out of reading it. I felt like there was a lot going on, almost too much going on at sometimes, even though it did touch on important topics. This could be something that other people might enjoy, so I would definitely suggest you guys checking this one out if it sounds like something you might be into. The art style, I did like the art style, but everything else I'm just like, not for me. The next book that I have to talk about is Jacques Road by Sarah Nye, and this is actually the 3rd book in a companion series. And this was probably one of my most disappointing reads, just because I did read the first 2 books in this companion series before reading this one. And I love both of the books. I think I gave both of them either 4 or 5 stars. And then I got to this one and it seemed like it was written by a completely different person. And obviously, with this being my worst reads of 2019, I just was not happy with it. So this one is a new adult following Jackson and Charlie. So Jackson, he actually, like everybody pretty much besides the main female character, calls him Triple J because his name is like Jackson Jennings Jr. or something like that. And he is one of the star players on the football team at the school. He grew up with his father being on him, and that ended up turning into him being super focused on his future football career. And because of that, he has not participated in the things that normal boys or guys his age have. Like, he doesn't party, he doesn't drink. I think he said he hadn't had a girlfriend at all. So he's pretty, I don't want to say in it, like he's pretty innocent basically. However, he is like a really big jerk. Honestly, both of them, to be quite frank, were assholes, and that was one thing that just kind of took me out of the story and like really dampened my appreciation for it. So like I said, in the first 2 books, we do get to see that the main male characters, they all start off with the same persona, But as we get to see a little bit more of them, obviously they kind of soften up and we get to see a little bit more of them. And eventually we do get that of him, which I appreciated, which is part of the reason why I enjoyed the previous books. However, we also get our main female character, Charlie. I don't remember what she was in school for, but she also has this persona of being really prissy. Obviously, that's how people see her and not exactly how she is. But she was really judgmental, and that lasted throughout the entire book. She just kept making assumptions based off of how he looked and him playing football. And it kind of blew my mind that it kept happening throughout the entire book. Now, this book isn't long at all. I think this one was under 300 pages. And I don't know. It just felt completely different from the first two books in this companion series. And I was not feeling it, which is probably something I'm going to be saying in this entire video. I just wasn't a fan, and it made me a little hesitant about if she continues to write in this world, if I will try the other ones. I might try, but I'm gonna be a little bit more wary than I was before. The next book that I have to talk about is Needing to Love You by Erin Riley. I felt really bad about this one. I was split with this book. Before I get into my actual thoughts, this is the second book in a companion series, and this one is following characters named Carlos and Kelsey. Carlos is a cop. I think they're in Houston. The two end up meeting because they have mutual friends, and those friends are actually the main focus of the first book. They meet at this bar, which is part of the prologue, and I think he asks her out or something like that, and she doesn't agree. I don't remember exactly all the details of the beginning, but not long into the story, I think maybe first or second chapter, Carlos actually gets into a really bad accident. He broke his leg and he woke up in the hospital, and once he's finally getting ready to release, his doctor pretty much says, like, you can't really be on your own because there's a lot of things that you can't do right now. And he didn't want to go back home with his mom, who lived in a different city. He didn't want to go home with her, and he didn't really have any other options. So Kelsey had been in the hospital, like staying with him at the hospital for quite a bit. Not really sure why, but she ends up putting an idea out there that she has like extra space in her house, and he could come stay with her and she can help take care of him until he's able to, you know, get back out on his own and take care of himself. First of all, that was a little strange. They know each other, but they don't know each other well enough for her to be literally being his caretaker. Before I get, I was already starting. I'm pretty sure I already ranted about this one in a wrap-up video. If I can find it and you guys are curious, I will have it linked somewhere, either up in the iCards or in the description below. But yeah, so the good things about this, I think once the romance actually got started, I was okay with the romance. I thought the romance was enjoyable and it followed a believable path, which I definitely enjoyed. I didn't feel like the romance was necessarily overdone. However, besides the actual romance, which I think is why I gave it 2 stars instead of 1, there was quite a bit of issues. Smaller things that I had issues with this was that Carlos ended up getting addicted to pain pills, which I have no judgment on that in the type of situation he was in. However, I thought that it was a little crazy that Kelsey has a young son, and obviously, like I said, Carlos is living with her, and even though he was staying in this room most of the time, there were a few times where he wasn't in the room, and she knew that he was addicted to these pills and he was constantly overusing them. And the fact that she let him stay there when, you know, she has her son with her the majority of the time, and she never confronted him or never was like, you know, you need to get yourself together or get out, because at this point you're risking the safety of my son. I had an issue with that because that should be something that you're thinking about. I get that he is struggling. I get that he needs somebody to look after him, but clearly at that point he's not looking after himself, and you're being responsible for him. But you have a child that should take a higher priority than this man that you barely know. But the biggest issue I had was the medical inaccuracies that took place in this book. So like I said, he was in a pretty bad accident, and a car accident, and I think he broke his leg in like one or two places. They said I'm pretty sure they put like a rod and screws in his leg. Now, I could be messed up because there isn't any exact time limits on how long things took place. I don't know how long he was in the hospital, but I know they don't keep, like, I know once they send you home, usually you aren't walking, because they try to get you out of the hospital once you're at a stable condition. Usually they send you home, and then, you know, you're doing all the resting and stuff like that, especially when you have like deep surgery like that where they have to set your leg for your bones to re-heal. I broke my ankle and I was out for like a good couple weeks, or maybe a little bit longer than that, before I was even able to switch from a cast, like taking my cast off, to putting a boot on. And then it was still a couple weeks before I was actually able to start physical therapy to start walking on my ankle again. So it bothered me so much that after he was in the hospital, they sent him home with a cane. I was just like, and okay, mind you, he had the rod, I think it was in his thigh, if I'm remembering correctly. So I'm like, he got sent home from the hospital on a cane. I was just like, first of all, that's a big no-no, because you're not supposed to put pressure on that, because although the rod is in your leg, your bones aren't re-healed yet. So you're not going to be walking on your leg, and with the cane you have to walk. So first of all, you're going to need crutches, and that's the first thing. And then when he got home, like, he was literally just walking around, hobbling around, putting pressure on his leg while he was at her house, like trying to do stuff for himself. I'm like, you were literally in a car accident. I get you're independent. However, unless you want something to be worse or not heal correctly, you need to sit your butt down. And he was not. He was like in the shower, and she was like, hold on while I go do something real quick. And this he tried to get out of the shower using like one of those towel racks that screw into the wall, and it broke off because he's like this 200-pound muscle man, and he's trying to use a rod that's screwed into the wall to hold his body weight to get out the tub. I was just like, and then he put like all his pressure on his leg that was messed up. This is just like the most frustrating thing to read, because obviously I'm not a doctor, so I don't know all the things that go into like orthopedic stuff like that. However, I know that what happened in that book would not be happening to somebody who was in the same situation. It drove me nuts. And if it wasn't for that, or if that had been done better, I probably would have enjoyed it more. And then, yeah, I'm pretty sure I ranted about this already, but I just had to get it off my chest again, obviously, for this video. And then I'm going to leave it at that, because, yeah, it just, that part was not good at all. And like I said, I did enjoy the romance, but that is why I ended up getting 2 stars instead of 1. So, yeah, take away from that what you will. Moving on to the second to last book that I have to talk about, which is Nilium by Claire Delicia. I actually have a full video review for this one. It's not super long, I don't think, because I didn't want to spoil anything, but I do have that in case you guys are interested in more detailed thoughts if I don't go into enough details in here. But in this book, we are following this character named Oriana. She lives on this island, and the island is pretty much split into like the rich people and the poor people. And there were some extra details in the description that honestly weren't, like, it was brought up one other time, but we're just going to skip over that for the purpose of this video. The girls are being raised to be married off. If she's not married off, then she's doesn't really have a future, which is kind of sad. But one day these 3 boys come in from the mainland, and one of them chooses her to get married, and that kind of throws her life into chaos, obviously, because what else can you expect from that type of situation? Going into this, I thought this book had a lot of potential, and I was sadly disappointed with this book. It felt like a first draft that had a lot of different pieces that weren't fully connected together, and that led to a lot of confusion. It was just a lot, like I said, that didn't make sense, and I wish there was a better editor to like let this author know like what needed to be done, like what needed to be taken out, what needed to be explored more. And the final book that I have to talk about for my worst reads of 2019 was Dirk Fever by Karen Marie Moning. So yeah, this was one of the books that we read for the Wicked Spirits book club. This book follows a character named Michaela. She goes by Mac though. And when the story starts off, she's not really doing anything. I think she's like a part-time bartender, but at the beginning of the story, she's literally laying in her parents' backyard, and she's just like, well, I'm not doing anything with my life right now, but once my sister gets back from her trip to Ireland, I think her sister was studying abroad, and she was like, once my sister gets back, I'm gonna get it together, and we're gonna go off and live together, and blah, 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 blah. I was just like, problem number one there. Why do you need to wait on somebody to get your life together? Anyway, but during that scene, she gets a call, and she finds out that her sister has actually been murdered, and we go through the process, and we find out that eventually the police in Ireland decide to drop the case. They can't figure out what happened. So she decides to take everything that she has and go off to Ireland to find out who killed her sister and why. Just to start off, like I said, the fact that this character was just kind of like, I'm gonna wait on somebody else to get my life together, was a big no-no for me. Then she doesn't know anything about where she's going, about who was there, like what her sister was involved in. But she's like, yeah, I'm gonna go there, and I'm pretty much gonna play detective just to figure out what happened. Just in general, Mac was a terrible character. Like I said, she never had a plan. She was just like, I'm gonna go rush into things. And then she meets this guy. There are a few instances where he's like, I guess, trying to scare her off, and that involves like physically doing something where, to the point where she's bruising, and then she's just like, oh my goodness, he's so attractive, and blah blah blah. I don't know. This book was really annoying. And literally the 2 only reasons I finished it was because I had an audiobook, and also because it was for book club, so I wanted to be able to discuss the book. But I did not enjoy this one. Mac made a lot of dumb decisions, and obviously they all came back to bite her in the butt, and she just thought she was really doing something by playing detective, and then she just stumbled into a bunch of situations. Like, she pretty much was made to expose herself in public, and I think she like started playing with herself, like masturbating in public because of some random fate. It was strange, and it was it was not good. I don't know why people like this. I did not. And yeah, I'm not planning on reading on in the series because I just did not enjoy this. And obviously, if this character continues to do things like this, I'm just not up for it at all. Yeah, that was a pretty short list considering how many books I read in 2019. I'm not too mad about that, just because I try to pick books that I know I'm gonna enjoy. But obviously, even when you do that, you still come across books that you aren't enjoying. I did have a couple books that I was struggling to get into that I did not finish, so I might possibly try to pick those up again this year. we'll see. But as far as this video, those were the worst books that I read in 2019. If you read any of the books that I talked about, let me know your thoughts about them in the comments. I know everybody doesn't feel the same way about the books that I talked about. Also, let me know what some of your worst reads for 2019 was. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you'd like to see more from me, make sure you subscribe. Also, click the little bell so you get notifications when I post new videos. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys again in the next one. Bye.